Well, I've been gone for over a year. If you're wondering where I was, I got burned out of making videos for a while, but now I'm back. And it's not like anything major happened while I was on hiatus. Oh wait, Xenoblade 3 was announced. So I feel it's only appropriate that I finally finish the Xenoblade Iceberg. It's going to be the same Iceberg from last time, so if you haven't seen part 1, go watch that, then come back to this. And now let's move on to the bottom of the iceberg. Mechon Fiora's flesh armor equipment are plastic prosthetics. So after Fiora becomes a Mechon, her entire body is now mechanical aside from her head. Despite this, there are pieces of equipment for Fiora that show off fleshy skin, which doesn't make sense considering most of her body is now mechanical. So the only way that makes sense is if these are plastic prosthetics that resemble flesh. I mean, come on. How else would you explain this? The pattern shared between the back of Alvis's jacket, Mechon Fiora's chestplate, and Menath's Monado. I mean, the symbol is simple, it's just a triangle with 3 circles. So I went to the wiki in search of more information, and not even the wiki knows. All it says is that it may represent Menath, the Monados, or something else entirely. Which isn't exactly helpful information when you're trying to make an iceberg video. So if you have a theory as to what the symbol might actually mean, please feel free to leave a comment. Mechon armor has connectors that you can't see in-game. The connectors are just textures that you can't see in-game. You can see them on the cutting room floor. There's also a lot of other content you normally can't see on there, so go check it out. Rein gets access to his DPS build after he realizes he can fight alongside Shulk instead of defending him. I'm not really sure what this is referring to, because to me, Rein has always been a mix of both tanking and DPS. I think I might be missing something here. I know Rein is one of the better characters for taking on the super bosses, and maybe that's what it's referring to, but other than that, I really don't know. In the opening cutscene, Mechonis is mainly defending itself from Bionis. When you first see the cutscene, you think Mechonis is attacking Bionis. But later in the game, you learn that Bionis actually attacked Mechonis first, which adds the context that Mechonis is defending itself in that cutscene. Mumkar's death parallels Fiora's death. Well, they both die very early on in the story, only to be revealed to be alive later as Face Mechon pilots, and Fiora dies by being stabbed by Metal Face's claws, and Mumkar finally dies when he is impaled with 2 giant spikes that fall off of Galahad Fortress. The Telethia in Magna Forest were transformed Hyentia guards. Late in the story, it's revealed that Telethia are actually Hyentia, which means that the Telethia that the party fights in Magna Forest has to be Hyentia guards that were transformed into it. How does skip travel between the Fallen Arm and Bionis work? But I think this is a case of it's a gameplay feature. It's not meant to make sense within the context of the story. I mean, personally, I always thought they just took junks back to Bionis whenever they went back. Because that's what happens later on. I mean, you can take junks from Colony 6 to the Fallen Arm up to the Bionis interior. It just makes sense that they would just take junks. In my head, there are 2 versions of me. This is a line that Shulk says to Rein at Outlook Park before leaving Colony 9. This is foreshadowing for Zanza being inside of Shulk, as Shulk hears 2 voices in his head, one telling him to listen to what Dunban said, and the other wanting him to go make the Mechon pay. This is his own consciousness versus Zanza trying to force Shulk to do what he wants. Colonies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 10 were destroyed by the Mechon. This isn't referenced in the game, but instead the secret Monado archives, where it states that there are 10 Homs colonies, but Colony 6 and Colony 9 were the only 2 that were not destroyed. They're mentioned in the Regeneration Chamber story, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Now that we've finished that part of the iceberg, we can move on to the next layer, the darkest waters. Why does the water become salty after Zanza's defeat? So at the end of the game, Ryan falls into the ocean during the end credits, and when he gets back out, he comments on how salty the water is. So why is the ocean salty now? I have no clue. Literally no clue. Maybe it's because more of the Bionis is now submerged in the water of the ocean, meaning that all the natural salt deposits are in the ocean now, therefore making it saltier? But other than that, I have no clue. Alvis's voice line referencing HAL 9000. So in the one fight where Alvis is a party member, when he dodges an attack, he has a chance of saying, "I'm afraid I can't let you do that," which is a reference to HAL 9000, who says that exact line in 2001 A Space Odyssey. The parallels between Egil and Shulk. Egil and Shulk are clearly counterparts of one another, and it all has to do with the cycle of revenge. Having his home attacked by Zanza, Egil decided he wanted to get his revenge for his people by taking out Zanza. Eventually, Egil came to the realization that the only way to take out Zanza for good would be to wipe out all life on Bionis. For this, he was outcast from the Machina, and he eventually grew to resent the Machina and view them as traitors. However, after Egil started trying to wipe out life on Bionis, this led to Shulk coming after the Mechon and eventually him, for revenge against attacking them. Egil tried to stop the cycle of revenge, but he had accidentally started it. So after the Mechon attack at Colony 9, Shulk decided to go after the Mechon and eventually Egil. However, Shulk had his friends by his side, which stopped him from giving in to his inner hatred. It also helps that he met the Machina, who explained the whole situation from their point of view. Had Shulk not had his friends by his side, or had ever met the Machina, he could have become exactly like Egil. He could have came to the conclusion that the only way to stop the threat of the Mechon would be to wipe out all life on Mechonis, therefore starting the cycle of revenge again. How was Zanza in the Monado and in Arglis at the same time? I'm going to go off my own headcanon here, so stay with me. Okay, so I don't think this is a situation in which Zanza was in the Monado and in Arglis at the same time. I don't think that's how that worked. I think that what happened was Zanza possessed Arglis after Arglis picked up the Monado. As a result of being possessed by Zanza, Arglis began to believe that he was Zanza, and I think some of Zanza's memories even got trapped within Arglis, which is why in Prison Island he states that he is Zanza and not that he is Arglis, because he still thinks he is Zanza because he was possessed by him. The Nopon Sage is older than McColl and therefore witnessed the battle between Bionis and Mechonis. So McColl is around 6,000 years old, I believe. The Nopon Sage, by comparison, is 9,999 years old, making him the oldest Xenoblade character with a confirmed age. We know Machina have very long lifespans, and a lot of Machina witnessed the battle between Bionis and Mechonis. So since the Nopon Sage is nearly 10,000 years old, he's much older than the Machina, which means he had to have seen the battle between the two titans. The Regeneration Chamber story. So this is a story from Xenoblade's secret file, the Monado Archives. The story's kind of long, so I'm just going to sum it up. This story takes place in between Shulk coming back in Colony 6 and the party going to Bionis Interior. Fiora's body is starting to fail her, and the gang debates whether or not they should even take her with them to go after Zanza, because it's very likely she will die on the way there. Eventually, the party learns of something known as the Regeneration Chamber, an ancient Hyantian machine that could supposedly heal any wound. So they go out to search for it so that they can get Fiora's Ham's body back. And eventually, they do find it near Colony 9. The party eventually realized that they couldn't put Fiora in the machine because if they did, her body would take a very long time to regenerate and she wouldn't be able to go with them to go after Zanza. Fiora did not want to leave the party for the rest of them to go fight Zanza without her, so she decided to stay with the party in her Mechon body. After defeating Zanza, they returned to the Regeneration Chamber and placed Fiora inside, where she eventually got her Hom's body back. And this is the reason why Fiora has her Hom's body during the ending credits. It's not explained in game, it's only explained in this particular story. Unused boss material. These are materials that were meant to be dropped by bosses, but just aren't dropped by bosses in normal game. They went unused. There's stuff like Tyrea's mask, Mumkar's claws, Dixon's amulet, and even, I believe, Yaldabaoth's faceplate was one of them. They even all have flavor text. Like, Yaldabaoth's faceplate, I think, states it would make a good piece of tableware. Gatto's cannon. This is an unused weapon for Sharla. The weapon takes inspiration from the Jadeface Mechon, and you most likely would have gotten it after beating Jadeface in Agniratha. The Giants. The Giants are a race that once lived on Bionis. They are very tall humanoids with purple skin and whitish-grayish hair. They appear to have lived all throughout central Bionis, as there are monuments left over from their civilization on Gaur Plain, Satoral Marsh, Magna Forest, and Valak Mountain. And that's all we really know about them. And that's all we really know about giants, other than the fact that they're most likely extinct, seeing as how we only have 2 named giants, and no one else in the entire story even references giants still being around. And I feel like we would have known if such a species was still alive on Bionis. Dunban created the Monado Wound on Sword Valley. So the Monado Wound is a landmark in Sword Valley. It's probably called the Monado Wound because Dunban used the Monado there and it created a giant crater. Because I highly doubt Zanza, with his giant glowing anime Buster Sword, caused this relatively minuscule wound on Sword Valley. Ricky has 2 more kids and adopts Kino between the final battle and the ending cutscene. This is more of a statement than anything, because this just explains why Kino exists in Future Connected. Lambert. So Lambert is an unused character found in the Japanese version of Xenoblade. Not much is known about Lambert other than he is presumably a testing character, but despite being an unused character, he actually has a lot of animations. I've even heard some theories that Lambert was planned to be a party member, but probably wasn't. He's probably just a testing character. Does Zanza remember being Klaus? Personally, I don't think so. I feel like if Zanza remembered himself being Klaus, that they would have definitely had a whole story arc about it. Or at least included it as a part of Zanza's character. I don't even think at one point he ever mentions the fact that he was Klaus, or even remembers being named Klaus. So he probably doesn't remember his past life. Who are the line of seers that Alvis is supposedly descended from? So in Alchemoth, when we meet back up with Alvis, he states that he is the seer of the royal family. And it's explained that seers are a group that serve the royal family, and it's a very long lineage. However, Alvis is the only person from this lineage that we ever meet. Which doesn't make a lot of sense when you consider Alvis is an AI. He's the one that created the world. So where are his ancestors? Because, he's an AI, and, I'm not a genius with, tech and stuff, but I'm pretty sure AI doesn't have parents. Well, that was a long tier, but now it's time to get down to the last tier, in the abyssal waters. Mass-produced faces don't have pilots. Egil extracted Hom's brains and put them in Mechon. Egil can't turn every Homs he captures into a face unit pilot. That would take a lot of resources and a lot of time, of which Egil probably doesn't have. But if he took the brain out of a Homs and put it into a face unit, he would very easily be able to mass-produce them, which explains the sheer amount of mass-produced faces. Ryan pressing the button in the High Entia tomb foreshadows Klaus resetting the universe. I mean, I guess you could say it foreshadows Klaus resetting the universe, considering both Ryan and Klaus pressed a button without fully considering what would happen after they pressed said button. Ricky can hear ghosts. So when Callian dies, there's this heartfelt scene between Callian and Melia, of which only she sees. The rest of the party does not see this, except for Ricky. Ricky doesn't see it but he does hear Callion's words. And since Callion was kind of disintegrated at this point, this means he has to be able to hear ghosts. Now, it's not explained if this is like a Ricky-only thing, or maybe it's a thing that all Nopon have, but it's kind of cool to think about. The sun and moon's fixed positions in the sky. Gonna be honest with you, I didn't know what this meant at first. But after some experimentation, I finally figured it out. Normally, the sun will rise in the morning until noon, and then slowly and gradually set. This is not how it works in Xenoblade. The sun will fade in and fade out during certain time periods and relocate to a new part of the sky. To show this, I went to Aerith Sea in the original Wii version and stood on top of the lighthouse, waiting at different time periods to show where the sun is and where the sun isn't. The sun and moon never actually rise or set. They instead just fade in and out at different parts of the sky when a certain time interval has been reached in-game. This one is too long, so I'm just going to sum it up. What it's referring to is that the symbols that appear on the Monado are actual Japanese kanji that represent that Monado power. For example, when Shulk uses enchant, the kanji for machine appears. And enchant allows other weapons to harm the Mechon, who are machines. Same with the word for human appearing, which means that the Monado can now cut humans, and the same with Kami appearing on the Monado, which means the Monado can now cut gods. How Colonel Vangar survived the Colony 9 attack. So if you don't remember Colonel Vangar, which, why don't you, he's the Waluigi-looking guy you meet in Colony 9. During the Mechon raid on Colony 9, he goes head-to-head against Metalface. He proceeds to shoot Metalface point blank with a grenade launcher, the force of which causes him to fall backwards. He then gets pinned down by another Mechon unit, and then Metalface picks up a military vehicle, throws it onto Vangar and the Mechon unit, which then explodes and you can hear him shout in pain. Now normally, a normal character would die after that, but Vanguard doesn't. He shows up later on when the Allied forces are going to Sword Valley. How on all of Bionis did he survive that? I guess it's the typical trope of if you don't see the body, then he's probably not dead, but that's still a lot for one man to go through and still be alive. How to play as Melia. There's actually a variety of ways to build Melia as a party member. You can have her be a utility support, you can have her focus on dealing damage to a large number of enemies, or just focusing on a lot of damage to a single enemy. Her unique playstyle allows for you to set her up however you may want, so there's not one true way to play as Melia. And our final entry is, the entrance to the Regeneration Chamber is in the game. I'm pretty sure at one point in development, the Regeneration Chamber was supposed to be in the game because that would explain how Fiora got her Hom's body back. And they included it in the art book, so it makes sense that at one point it was supposed to be in the game. The Regeneration Chamber was stated to be in a high Entian ship near Colony 9. And there just so happens to be a high Entian ship in Tephra Cave. There is this door at the top of Tephra Cave in the ship area where Shulk, Ryan, and Fiora get the ether cylinders for the main story. So if there was going to be anywhere where there was supposed to be a regeneration chamber, it would probably be next to the ether cylinders, which would probably be powering it. And that is the Xenoblade Iceberg. I am so sorry it took me so long to finish it. I do plan on doing a Xenoblade 2 Iceberg, however I cannot find one as of yet. But I did find a template, so I might use that and make my own Iceberg image. So that's gonna take a while, and I hope you guys will stick around for it. And I will see you guys in the next video. See you later.